TalkFCB and welcome back here to the channel, guys. I hope you all had a fantastic day yesterday. However you spent it, whoever you spent it with, I hope you had an absolutely fantastic day. And of course, I did take a day off. I did feel quite bad about that, but I am back now with some uploads for you guys. And in today's video, I'm going to be answering some of your questions. We're going to be looking at the team in some detail. We're going to be doing some analysis. There's lots coming up in today's video. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get to it. And I want to start here with what I feel is a very, very important question. And it's actually probably the most frequent question that I receive right now. And it's all surrounding the attacking trio of Barcelona, Messi, Suarez, Griezmann. I had a lot of people get in touch and basically say, what do you think there about MSG compared with MSN? Who would you prefer? Who do you think are the most effective? Can we recreate the success we had with MSN, with MSG? And of course, it's all about this exciting attacking trio that we now have again at Barcelona, and can we use that to propel us back to the very summit of European football? And that's the big question. And the first thing that I have to say before we go into the two and really analyse the differences and the similarities between the two, what I've got to say is they're not the same. And I actually believe that it's very difficult right now to compare the two. One of the first reasons you'd have to say is MSG hasn't had the time yet to really gather that full connection and really give the amount of games that we need to see the full benefits there of that attacking trio. MSN was incredible, but they did have a long time there to build up to that final crescendo that we all saw. But what I would also say is they are very, very different, even though there's not really that much difference in the personnel, because you would say there 2/3 of the trio is exactly the same as it was. You've still got Suarez, you've still got Lionel Messi, and the only difference is we've swapped in there Antoine Griezmann in the sort of Neymar Jr. role out on the left-hand side. That's the only difference there, technically, in the trios. But what I would say is, it's very different. It's very different there because it's not the same Luis Suarez. It's not the same Lionel Messi. They're very different players now to how they were a few years ago. They've developed into different types of roles. They're older. They have different characteristics now than they did, particularly Luis Suarez. There's differences in his game right now to how we saw a few years ago. And Griezmann, for me, a very different profile to Neymar Jr. And I think the really important thing when you look there at the two trios side by side is not only themselves, not only the attacking threat, but also what the team needed at that time. Because they will all accept we're not the same team now that we were under Luis Enrique, as we were under Pep Guardiola. It's a very different Barcelona team, and as a result of that, we need different types of players to really thrive under what we're doing under Valverde, which of course none of us agree with. But anyway, back to the point in hand. You look here at the Champions League final team when we beat Juventus in Berlin in 2015. This right here was the starting lineup. Ter Stegen in goal, Jordi Alba, Mascherano, Piqué, Dani Alves, Busquets, Iniesta, Ivan Rakitic, with Neymar, Suarez and Messi all leading the line there in the Champions League final, of course, which we won. Now I want to look at today and exactly what sort of team we would see from Barcelona. Quite frequently this season, we've seen these sort of players. Ter Stegen, Alba, Longley, Piqué, Sergio Roberto there playing at right back, Busquets, De Jong and Rakitic has been used quite often in midfield in recent times. Griezmann, Suarez and Messi there leading the line. So what you would say there, about four changes to what we saw in the Champions League final to what we see week in, week out for Barcelona today. Now maybe that's one of the problems, because in the years that have gone by, should we have refreshed the squad, should we have renewed the squad much more than we actually have? That's a possibility. What I would also say is, you look at it right now with the trio that we have, Griezmann, Suarez, Messi. What we have to see now is a lot more work in these central areas, and that's why for me, you see Messi coming inside a lot more than we used to in the old lineup. And the reason for that is, in the old team there, with that front three, I think Luis Suarez's role was so much more crucial, because you look at Suarez, you look at the way that he plays, and the abilities that he had right throughout his game. He was incredible. He could link the play, he could get involved there in the build-up, he could bring Neymar into the game, he could bring Messi into the game, and what he gave there in that central area was so incredible, particularly there in the time that we won the Champions League, along with being a top-class centre-forward. And also there, you had Andres Iniesta Iniesta, who I think played much more advanced and did so much more work in that midfield than anybody does in our current team. De Jong certainly is starting to play that role where he will get forward a lot more, but in that midfield right now, it's a lot more conservative from Barcelona. That means that Messi has got to come central. He's got to take part in play in more central areas, whereas before, he was quite happy here and very effective to stay wide on the right-hand side. Then, of course, for me, one of the monumental areas right now is at right-back. You look here at Dani Alves. He was instrumental going forward. He was also there, an added addition at times in midfield. He'd come inside. You all know about his link-up with Lionel Messi, and we have never replaced Dani Alves. Sergio Roberto is a good player. Sergio Roberto is a player who can be effective here in the final third, no doubt about it. But we've never replaced Alves, and that also puts strain there on the right-hand side. So already here, you're starting to see different types of problems. You've got Antoine Griezmann now, who for me, in Suarez's latter years, he's going to do more in the central areas too. So I think already what you're seeing from this front three is so much more narrow. It's so much more compact there in the centre of the field and much less happening in these wider areas, which puts so much more emphasis on the fullbacks when in fact they may not be as good as they were all that years ago. Because you imagine here, if this team was very, very narrow, you could rely on a younger, fresher Jordi Alba, on Dani Alves here on the right-hand side, and I'd actually feel so much more comfortable. But these three, they could be anywhere. Neymar could take up central areas. Suarez was athletic enough to get out here and play in the wider areas too. You had Lionel Messi, who could play right throughout that front three. They were so flexible. Are we going to see there the same flexibility in the front three now? And it is going to be interesting because I do believe this front three can certainly be successful, but it's such a different Barcelona team. We don't know how MSN would actually fare in the Barcelona of today. We don't know how that would work out. What we do know is this front three have to find a way to be successful, to work in this Barcelona system as we are right now. I believe they can do it. I do believe they can get the job done. Will it be as brilliant, as mind-blowing, as swashbuckling as MSN was? Probably not. But that doesn't mean they can't be successful. They'll just have to do it by reinventing themselves further. And with that exact point in mind there about the trio, about the way they've got to really thrive in this Barcelona, we've got to move on now to a different type of question, and I think something that's extremely relevant thinking about that is basically, what is the reason for our poor performances in away games? Is it a lack of motivation, or is it the tactics from Barcelona? And I've had a lot of questions about this. You can see there questions about the commitment of the players from Barcelona, about the way they apply themselves in games, particularly there looking back on all years. Are we seeing Barcelona apply themselves in the way that they should? And I think they're very interesting question and very relevant, like I say, because I actually think they're speaking about motivation, speaking about the mentality, speaking about tactics. I think all of those things. Our away performances are as a result of all of those things combined. And I actually think there, one triggers the other. And when that happens, it's an absolute catastrophe. And I'm going to basically talk about exactly why I feel that way here. Because you think about it right now. Barcelona, you think about last season, you think about the season before. We have crumbled in away matches, particularly there, thinking about the Champions League. And I think it starts with the tactics. It starts there with the mindset of the coach, the way that he actually sets his team up, the way that he wants his team to play. Valverde is the man who has to instill this team with his own ideas, and they have to go out there and carry them out. And I think Barcelona, in away games under Valverde, go out there with the mindset of basically being pragmatic. And what that means is just happily there, sitting in, absorbing pressure, soaking it up, sitting a bit deeper than we will have done in previous years, and basically inviting the opposition on, and basically saying, you know what, we can cope with that. The fact is, though, we haven't coped with that. And the problem is, with those tactics in mind, once we go behind, we don't react. We can't react. Then the mental stage kicks in. And that's what I mean there about one triggering the other. I think we go out there with two negative tactics. I think we go out there with the wrong mindset. And then when we go behind, when something there unforeseen happens, we can't react. And then suddenly you've got a real problem with your mentality. Because when you go out there with those negative tactics, when you start sitting off the opposition, when you start sitting deeper in the field, once you go behind, it's so difficult then to change all that. It's so difficult then out on the field to suddenly say, right, okay then, we're going to go forward now, we're going to press high, we're going to get further up the field, we're going to completely change our tactics in the space of a few moments, and we're going to become a different style of team. It's so tough to do that, and that's why quite often, in away games, you look at the Barcelona players, and they look like a rabbit in the headlights. They look like they don't know what to do. They look like they don't really understand or know within themselves how to get out of this situation, and that's because they can't. You can't just change things. Like, you can't just flip a switch, and suddenly then, you're in a different mindset as a team, because Valverde will drill these players. You will be on the training field day after day with the tactics that you want to go out there with in these kind of games, and if you're not right from the very first whistle, and if you don't go out there with the right mindset from the word go, well, that's it. You've lost the game there before it even started, and we've seen that in games against Liverpool, in games against Roma. We all know the kind of consequences that comes by virtue of those tactics. What I would say, though, is I believe MSG can change that. I do believe that having a trio like that can instill belief in this team, that can actually go a long way to trying to change that mentality. In the biggest of moments, will having that trio give us the belief that, yeah, we can turn things around. We can go out there and be a bit more positive. We can go out there and play on the front foot because we got belief in ourselves that this trio, that this attacking force can get that goal, can get the job done. And I do believe in the biggest of games, we'll be tested, we'll be questioned. The Barcelona team right now has still got so much to answer for. But if they put it together, if they come together as one, and we can find a way to make that trio work, we could see different results, and hopefully in this team, a different mentality when it really matters. So that there, guys, is just my thoughts on the front three about Barcelona blossoming there in the attacking areas. But of course, like I said before, there's so much of that team that still needs work. You look at the defence, you look at the midfield. By no means is this Barcelona team the end product right now. And of course, it's very, very difficult to compare it to the glory days of MSN. We all know about those memories. We all wish that we could go back to those kind of days. But like I say, it's all about making these players work in the Barcelona team of today. Will they make that happen? We'll have to wait and see. But don't worry, guys. More videos coming up. Lots more to discuss. Barcelona are not in action just yet, but to be honest, it's not all that far away. I will see you soon. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks as always, guys, for your questions. Thanks for your comments. I will see you soon. But until next time, as always, Visca El Barça.